What's up everyone on the internet? Thank you for making this video part today. I'm so excited to upload this one for you guys because for this video we'll be taking a look at Netflix's new anime, Vampire in the Garden. But first things first, what do you guys think about my new green screen? After being on YouTube for almost 5 years, I think it was about time for a green screen. I should also point out that if you're a bit confused as to why some of my videos are switching from green screen to my usual setup, is because some of my other videos were pre-recorded in December 2021. I know what you're probably thinking, Adam exposed. Yes, I pre-record most of my videos, but that's because I really want to make sure that I keep a tight schedule on releasing content for this channel. But anyway, Vampire in the Garden came out a week ago on Netflix, and one of the things that obviously jumped out at me was that this was going to be a story set in a world where there's a war between vampires and humans. And that's when I sort of realized that when it comes to horror themed content, I really enjoy watching movies, TV shows, anime that really dive into the world of vampires. Maybe it's because I really liked watching Castlevania, or maybe it's also because it's one of those subgenres that also piques my mom's interest, which makes us both want to watch this sort of thing together. So if you have any vampire anime recommendations, please let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, going back to Vampire in the Garden, one of the things that I mentioned was how this is a show that is set in a world where humans and vampires are at war with one another, and from the looks of it, this war has lasted for a long time. Because at the start of episode 1, you get a brief history lesson on this world where you learn that these vampires and humans have been going to war with each other for almost 100 years. And what you're seeing right now in this story is the very end of this war, where both sides are pretty much worn down to the bare bone, to the point where they're almost facing near extinction. And as we move further into the first episode, we are introduced to our two main characters who sort of serve as the beacons of hope for both sides. We first get a good look at Momo, who is a human timid girl that is just thrown into this cruel world, who also just happens to be the general's only daughter, so that puts a lot of pressure on this teenager. And we have Fine, who is a vampire who refuses to feed off of human blood and also struggles from PTSD. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she's the queen of the vampires. So what happens when this human soldier meets the vampire queen? Road trip! As it turns out, both Momo and Fine are tired of being victims of this war where they are both watching their races just tear each other apart. For Momo, she pretty much acts like a typical teenager who just got into an argument with her mom, and what's the first thing she wants to do? Run away! But that's only because she believes that there has to be somewhere in this world that hasn't been completely destroyed by this war. For Fine, she's pretty much tired of being the queen of blood, and what I mean by that is that even she believes that her race is just as cruel as the humans. So we have two characters who both oppose their own race, and the only way to solve this little problem is to simply run away with each other. And their destination that this show sets us up for is a place where both humans and vampires can coexist with one another, called Eden. Which I thought was a very interesting concept, because by the end of episode 1, I was getting some Logan vibes, and what I mean by that is that both stories had something similar with each other in terms of having a final destination point that sort of serves as a beacon of hope for our two main characters who are about to take us on this incredible journey. I was also very excited to see this show become a coming-of-age story that is set in a vampire world where our two main characters are human and vampire going on this big adventure of self-discovery. And while we see Momo and Appa, I mean Fine, go on this adventure together, if I had one word to describe this show, it would be that it is very abrupt. What I mean by that is that the pacing in this anime is sort of off to where this story had a lot more to tell that didn't show. And I say that because with only 5 episodes, that's a lot of ground to cover if you want to tell an emotional story of friendship and endurance between these two characters who are traveling across the country to their paradise that may or may not exist. Now, this is where the show starts to drop the ball when it decides to shorten the amount of screen time it takes for our characters to reach their final destination. Honestly, I feel this show could have been at least 12 episodes long, and by doing that, we as an audience would have grown more attached to Momo and Fine, while also feeling some sort of tension knowing that there's a war going on and it's coming straight for them. Because by the time we reach the 5th and final episode, we are expected to feel some sort of tension and anxiety knowing that both armies are closing in on these two girls, And we're also expected to feel some sort of emotion for Momo and Fine, who are part of two different worlds that hate each other, but still believe that both vampires and humans can still live with one another. Instead, the show decides to rush through any character development in favor of getting our characters from point A to point B as quick as possible. So overall, I sort of enjoyed this show. With only 5 episodes, this show is super easy to binge through, and honestly, I feel like this show should be watched all in one go, because by watching it all in one sitting, it sort of feels like you're watching a movie, which makes the pacing of the story somewhat normal, as opposed to watching it half of it one day and the other half the next day, which is what I mistakenly did. But still, the story still feels rushed, and the ending is abrupt, which makes me sad because I was really hoping for a great coming-of-age story set in a vampire world. Also, I will say, if you do happen to watch this anime, at least skip through the credits, because there's an end credit scene that sort of redeems this show and at least closes the book on this story. I say that because I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a season 2. And with a lot of pressure on Netflix, what with their stock just drastically dropping, I wouldn't be surprised if this show was a byproduct of Netflix's downward spiral into bankruptcy. I'm pretty sure when Netflix realized that they can make this show cheap with only 5 episodes, they pretty much jumped the gun on this anime, as opposed to spending a lot more money on a 12-episode season that would have told a much better story that we all would have liked. But hey, it is what it is. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. That was my overall review for Vampire in the Garden. If you like what you saw, click the subscribe button so you can always update from this channel. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Bye-bye.